Burt Reynolds finally breaks his silence on Clint Walker. Burt Reynolds was born Burton Leon Reynolds Jr. on February 11, 1936 in Lansing, Michigan, to Harriet Vernay and Burton Milo Reynolds, a police chief. His family would later relocate to Riviera Beach, Florida, where young Burt developed a love of sports, particularly football, which would shape the early part of his life and ambitions. Reynolds attended Florida State University, where he was a promising halfback on the football team. His dreams of a professional football career were dashed, however, after a serious knee injury, a moment that would ultimately alter his destiny and steer him toward acting. Following a short spell in junior college and some aimless years trying to find direction, a teacher put fire in his belly for the stage. That encouragement became the spark that set Burt Reynolds on the path to fame. His early acting career was not easy. Reynolds struggled in the 1950s, taking small parts in various television shows such as Gunsmoke and Riverboat. His rugged good looks and deep voice made him a natural for westerns. But it took time for Hollywood to see him as more than just another pretty face. His breakout came in the late 1960s and early 1970s with films like Deliverance, 1972, where he gave a raw, powerful performance that showed depth and intensity as an actor. The movie was both a critical and commercial success, further solidifying Reynolds as a serious performer capable of more than charm. The 1970s marked the height of Burt Reynolds' stardom. With hits like Smokey Icky and The Bandit, 1977, The Longest Yard, 1974, and Hooper, 1978, he had become the quintessential American movie star, a symbol of a rebellious confidence and good-natured masculinity. His trademark mustache, devilish grin, and confident swagger defined an era of film heroes who did not take themselves seriously. Audiences loved him because he was approachable, real, a man who could make you laugh one minute and break your heart the next. Beyond the action and comedy roles, Reynolds also proved himself capable of dramatic depth. His performance in Deliverance remains one of the most respected of his career, and his later comeback role in Boogie Nights, 1997, earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. In Boogie Nights, he played Jacker, a complex adult film director whose mix of fatherly affection and flawed morality displayed Reynolds' mature, layered acting ability. Many saw it as a career-defining moment, proof that beneath his rugged, playful exterior lay an actor of real emotional substance. Financial troubles and career missteps also marked Reynolds' journey. In the 1980s and 1990s, he faced box office disappointments, health problems, and bankruptcy. Yet he remained resilient, returning again and again to the screen and stage with humor and humility. He continued acting well into his later years, often mentoring younger performers and appearing in independent films that reminded audiences of his enduring magnetism. Burt Reynolds' personal life was often as colorful and dramatic as the roles he played on screen, and his marriages reflected the intense, passionate, and sometimes turbulent nature that defined much of his private world. He was married twice, each union representing a different era in his life and career. First to actress Judica during his early rise to fame, and later to television star Lonnie Anderson at the height of his Hollywood stardom. Both marriages were short-lived, but left a lasting imprint on Reynolds' emotional journey and public image. His first marriage was to Judica, an English actress best known for her comedic performances on the 1960s sketch show Rowan and Martin's Logan. The two married in 1963, when Reynolds was still establishing himself as a promising young actor and Hollywood heartthrob. Their relationship began with passion and shared ambition. Both were attractive, energetic performers trying to climb the ladder of fame. However, their marriage was plagued by the pressures of show business and clashing personalities. Ka later wrote candidly in her memoir about the volatility of their relationship, describing a mix of affection and emotional strain that ultimately proved too difficult to sustain. Reynolds, for his part, would later admit that the marriage ended too quickly and that he had not yet matured enough to handle the demands of a lifelong commitment. After only 2 years together, the couple divorced in 1965, marking a brief but influential chapter in Reynolds' early life. Although their marriage ended, Reynolds reportedly maintained a sense of regret about how it unfolded, later reflecting that both he and Ka were simply too young and career-driven to make it work. More than 2 decades later, Burt Reynolds entered into his second marriage. This time with Loni Anderson, a blonde bombshell and television star who had become a household name for her role as Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati. They married in 1988 at a time when Reynolds was one of Hollywood's most bankable leading men and was at the peak of her popularity. Their union seemed like a glamorous Hollywood fairy tale. Two beautiful, successful stars joining their lives together in what appeared to be a perfect match. The wedding itself was highly publicized, drawing the attention of fans and the media alike, who saw them as one of Hollywood's golden couples. However, behind the public smiles and red carpet appearances, the marriage was far from harmonious. Both Reynolds and Anderson were strong-willed individuals with demanding careers and busy schedules, and rumors of discord soon began to surface. Financial disagreements, career pressures, and allegations of infidelity on both sides reportedly strained the relationship. The marriage began to deteriorate in the early 1990s, leading to a bitter and very public divorce in 1994. The breakup made national headlines as Reynolds and Anderson both spoke openly and sometimes harshly about each other in the press. Reynolds later admitted that the divorce was one of the most painful experiences of his life, both emotionally and financially. He accused Anderson of being more concerned with fame and money than love. While Anderson claimed that Reynolds had been unfaithful and abusive, claims he denied. Bitterness aside, their relationship also included tender moments, particularly centered around their shared devotion to their adopted son, Quentin Anderson Reynolds. Though the marriage ended badly, both eventually expressed regret about how public and acrimonious their split had become. In his later years, Reynolds reflected on his marriage to Anderson with a mix of wistfulness and sorrow, admitting that though the relationship had caused him deep pain, he had genuinely loved her and wished things could have turned out differently. For decades, fans of classic Hollywood westerns and tough guy cinema have drawn parallels between two of the most ruggedly handsome and charismatic actors of their generation, Burt Reynolds and Clint Walker. Both men embodied the image of the stoic, muscular, heroic American male, the kind who could tame a wild horse, win a bar fight, and still flash a disarming smile that melted hearts. While their careers did overlap from the 1950s through the 1970s, Reynolds had rarely spoken about his personal feelings toward Walker. That silence left room for rumors and speculation until now. In a reflective interview recorded late in his life, Burt Reynolds finally opened up about his friendship, rivalry, and admiration for Clint Walker. His words painted a vivid picture of two Hollywood icons shaped by grit, talent, and an unspoken mutual respect. In my early days, Reynolds began, Clint Walker was already a legend to guys like me. I was still trying to make a name for myself. And there was Clint, this mountain of a man with a voice that sounded like it came straight from the Rockies. I remember watching him on Cheyenne and thinking, now that's what a cowboy is supposed to look like. Reynolds admitted that seeing Walker dominate television in the 1950s made a strong impression on him. While Burt was hustling through guest roles and small parts, Clint had already become one of Warner Brothers' biggest TV stars. He was 6 feet 6 inches, built like a tank, and every studio wanted a piece of him. Reynolds said, "I'll be honest, I envied him a little back then. He had what we all wanted, strength, dignity, and this quiet confidence that didn't need to shout." As Reynolds reflected further, his tone softened, revealing a deep sense of respect which had grown over time. Clint wasn't just muscle and charm. He was one of the kindest men I ever met in this business. Hollywood can chew you up and spit you out, but Clint never lost his decency. He didn't play the game the way others did. He stayed true to himself, and that's something I always admired. Reynolds, known for his rebellious streak and occasional clashes with Hollywood executives, recognized a shared independence in Walker. We both had that stubborn streak. We didn't like being told what to do. But Clint had a calm about him. Where I might blow up or joke my way through a bad situation, Clint would just look you in the eye and say what needed to be said. That's power, the quiet kind. When asked if the two ever considered working together, Reynolds chuckled. There were a few times the idea came up. He said, we joked about doing a Western together. He'd be the straight arrow hero, and I'd be the smart-mouthed deputy who gets in trouble. It would have been a riot, but timing was never right. I was always shooting something like Smokey and the Bandit while he was off doing another adventure picture. Still, I think audiences would have loved to see us side by side. Burt also addressed the long-standing fan debate about who was the real toughest man in Hollywood. People love to compare, Reynolds said with a grin. They'd say, who'd win in a fight, Burt Reynolds or Clint Walker? Well, I'll tell you the truth. If Clint wanted to, he could have snapped me like a twig, but he wouldn't. That wasn't who he was. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. His presence alone said it all. Reynolds went on to recall the few times they crossed paths socially. We met a handful of times over the years, award shows, charity events, things like that. Every time I saw him, he greeted me like an old friend. No ego, no competition, just genuine warmth. You don't forget that in this business, he'd ask me how I was doing, how my folks were, and he meant it. You don't get that kind of sincerity from many people in Hollywood. In his final reflections, Reynolds spoke not only as a fellow actor, but as a man looking back on what defined a generation of stars. Guys like Clint Walker represented something that's missing now, he said quietly. He was a man's man, but also a gentleman. He didn't need scandals or headlines. He let his work and his character speak for him. That's rare. I think we all wanted to be a little like Clint, strong, decent, and unshakable. Reynolds concluded his remarks with a simple, heartfelt tribute. Clint Walker was one of a kind. The screen lost a real cowboy when he left us, and the world lost a good man. I was proud to,